Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to day 3, the final day of the ISRM Australia New Zealand launch event. My name is Joe Saunders. I'm the Vice Chair of Australia New Zealand, and along with our Regional Chair, Dr. Gabrielle Schneider, it is our tremendous honour, pleasure and privilege to invite you back for what has been already an amazing event, and we are finishing off strong. Gav, it's great to be back again.
Joe, looking very forward to the last day. I think the only challenge we have is we've set the bar so high on the last 2 days, but I have no doubt that today is going to be an awesome day too.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got a lot coming up. Today, we are joined for a keynote by the amazing Joanne Hewitt, but we are also introducing all of our state chapter chairs and New Zealand chapter chair. For those of you that are in the audience and want to know who to connect with locally and how to get involved, there'll be an amazing opportunity for you to meet our incredible leaders and also to ask questions of them about their vision and what they're hoping to achieve at a local level with the ISRM. So, Gav, let's start off just before we introduce our local chairs. It'd be good to introduce, for those that maybe are new to the ISRM, who the regional directors are, who our executive leadership are at a regional level. So let's run through who's involved there.
Thanks, Joe. And I guess let's start off with this event itself. You know, no event like this one happens without so much support, backup and assistance from numerous role players and stakeholders. So very happy that we've had our amazing event director, Alicia Doherty, who will hand over and she'll have a few words to say in a few minutes. But also special thanks to Janita Zhang, who's made most of this happen and put all the digital pieces together. Needless to say, it's fascinating how quickly things have grown, changed and evolved with the ISRM. And even as we've been speaking, there's been another chapter that's been stood up in Kuwait, I believe, where there wasn't previously a chapter before.
Wow, so that makes 20 chapters now, I believe.
Correct, Joe.
Wow.
So really, really exciting. In fact, when I was chatting to David Rubens last night, it's almost an ongoing challenge to keep up with the viral expansion. And I say that very carefully in a time of pandemic.
Well, there's three chapters in 2 weeks now with Japan, South Africa and Kuwait. That's considering at the end of last year, David said, I think we might be done with new country chapters for a little while. I think we've got what we will get. So 3 more in 2 weeks has put pay to that.
And also happy to announce that we've been working with David, and in the next few weeks we'll be releasing a corporate partnership program. And we're hoping that will add significant value for organizations that want to become involved and assist at the organizational level as opposed to the individual level. So please, if you've tuned in, watch out for that, because I think it's going to be quite exciting and there's going to be so many free value adds as part of that structure.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to our state chapter chairs, I do know our director of events, Alicia, has a topic very close to her heart. Gav, if you would like to introduce Alicia for the audience.
Yes, thanks, Joe. So Alicia is one of those superheroes behind the scenes, but an amazing achiever in her own right, with an extensive career in federal government, state government. Her previous role before she joined our team at R2S and now helping us with the ISRM was General Manager for the American Chamber of Commerce up here in Queensland. And also Alicia had a fascinating career where she started off in the US Army as a helicopter mechanic. So really, really interesting journey from humble beginnings into somebody we all know is amazing and adds so much value to all the interactions we have.
Well, thank you very much. That's a wonderful introduction. But I am so pleased to be involved with the ANZ chapter, and like what you said, 20 chapters. ISRM started in March of 2019 and we're already at 20 international chapters. So if you want to be involved with top leaders who really know their stuff, ISRM is where you need to be. We will facilitate, collaborate, and work with all of the various organizations that are out there. But what's really important is that we will always create opportunities for everyone, no matter who you are, whether you're a student or a senior practitioner, female, there will always be opportunities. So we want to be a conduit. You know, in all of our events, we will always endeavor to create opportunities. But we also want to work, like I said, and collaborate with the other groups. So if there are opportunities, let us know so that we can help spread the word. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I know that you will get a lot out of being a member of ISRM, and we look forward to working with you. Back to you, Joe.
Thank you for that, Alicia. And certainly we do encourage you to become involved with the ISRM. We have an amazing network of thought leaders already, but one of the recurring themes throughout the last 2 days of amazing keynotes and panel discussions has been that no one of us can do this on our own. And even just with the amazing team we've already assembled within the ISRM here in ANZ, we always need more help. We always need more feet on the ground. We always need more leaders. We need more ideas. We need more innovation, and we don't get that in an echo chamber. So the more people that can get involved from diverse backgrounds, different areas of risk, male, female, experienced, new, student, or executive, wherever you are in your journey and in your life, you can contribute in an incredible way to the ISRM. So I would like to start now to introduce our state chapter chairs. Now, each chapter chair will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves and what they're all about, what their career journey has looked like, and also what they're hoping to achieve in their state chapters. So the order they will appear in, we have our Victorian chapter chair, Mr. John Brennan, followed by our ACT chapter chair, Julian Talbot, followed by our New South Wales chair, Andrew Bissett, then our Queensland chair, Catherine Parker, our West Australian chair, Ron Amram, our South Australian chair, Kerry Stevens, and last but not least, our New Zealand chair, the chief risky dude, Gavin Pearce. So without further ado, I would like to throw now to Mr. John Brennan from Victoria.
Perhaps while we're waiting, Joe, maybe we should just bounce to one of our other state chapter chairs and circle back.
I think this is where you insert your spiel about VUCA, I think, Gav. So as obviously you're all aware, this is it's a live virtual event, so we have a lot of moving pieces. We actually Alicia's experience as a helicopter mechanic will probably fit in well here in terms of getting a couple of thousand pieces to fly in synchronicity. So we'll come back to John, but I'll throw now to our New South Wales chapter chair, Andrew Bissett.
Good morning, everyone. My audio is okay?
Yep, perfect.
One thing you'll learn about me, I'm an avid West Tigers supporter, and I've kept one of my framed jerseys in the background for everyone to appreciate why I'm speaking. So, as indicated, my name's Andrew Bissett. I'm looking after New South Wales. In terms of career experience, 25 years, both in corporates. So I've worked for a number of different, in a number of different industries, BHP, mining, Qantas Airlines, Woolworths in retail, Tabcorp in gaming, and I spent many years in professional services as well. Because one of the things that when I look back over the last 12 months, I think we're acutely reminded of how the world in which we inhabit is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. If only we had a crystal ball. And I think there's a great opportunity, because unless anyone here can advise me otherwise, I don't think a crystal ball has been invented. So I think there is a great opportunity for risk and compliance professionals to help not only organisations but society be more organisationally resilient. And what I hope to do with my colleagues is bring our sort of risk and resilience experience, leveraging the network that we create, leveraging the thought leadership that a number of you can contribute to, and really create a good, solid network of risk and resilience professionals that, as I said, can support better organisational resilience, but better outcomes globally. And that's probably it from a high level. So the key focus areas for New South Wales over the next 12 months is to grow our membership, but we really want to do a lot around thought leadership. So across the full spectrum of what I call integrated risk management, Because I think we talk about risk, we talk about resilience, but in essence, they're the found or supporting elements to support good governance within an organisation. So unless a number of moving parts are operating well, an organisation is potentially exposed. Your organisation is potentially exposed, and we as a society as well is potentially exposed to negative outcomes. And I think one of the other things that risk and resilience professionals want is to build a network of interconnectedness with their peers so they can share their thoughts, seek guidance, etc. So thank you very much for attending the last few days. I really look forward to working with everyone as we build and make this organisation a really foundational and beacon for good risk and resilience throughout the world, but particularly in Australia and New Zealand. So now I'll pass on to Catherine, the Queensland Chair.
Actually, sorry, Andrew, is Joe here? We'll go back to John. We'll try to get John back from Victoria.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks very much for that, Andrew. And just testing. Hopefully, I'm coming through loud and clear.
Yep, all loud and clear, John. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, folks, thank you. And I hope you've got a lot out of the last 2 days. There's been some extraordinary speakers, and as one of the state chairs, I'm incredibly excited that we've actually reached this point. Just a little bit about me. I've spent 25 years actually in the human resources field predominantly, crossing over many years ago into organisational cultural reform and business transformation, and then the last few years into strategy and risk leadership, and all of those things have come together really well. I think the reason I joined ISRM and what stimulated my interest in getting more involved and helping us get to this point was, first of all, the quality of the thinking and the discussions that had been occurring, and you've seen a group of those thought leaders come together over the last 2 days. So what from a Victorian chapter perspective, I would really like for us to consider, and what I'd like to drive us, is that as we grow the Victorian chapter over the next 2 years, we want to grow and be more inclusive and reach out to more risk professionals. But also, I think the diversity of professional interest is what's going to really have the ISRM in Australia stand out as being different and particularly attractive. So the more that we can bring in, broader business leaders, strategy leaders, clear thinkers, and those who are really considering, what makes great communities, what makes great businesses, and the intersection of those two things, I think the stronger ISRM will become. You don't need me to talk to you about what's happened across the last 12 months around Australia, but certainly what we've seen is that this has given people a lot of cause to reflect on, what makes what they value and what makes a great community. And so, from a risk perspective, it's never been more topical about what might go wrong that can derail our way of life. Certainly, one of the topical things that drives me and my professional bias comes out here is around risk culture. Some of us have been talking about this stuff for 20 years. It really got a head of steam in 2018 with the Hayne Royal Commission. Interestingly, some conversation around risk culture seems to almost be dying away already as that window closes. So importantly, I would love for our chapter in Victoria to be at the forefront of continuing to push through and describing what makes great risk culture in our businesses. Enough from me. Please reach out, get in touch with me, get in touch with any of the chapter chairs as you see fit, and we hope to talk to you soon. I'll hand across to Julian in the ACT.
Hi everyone, my name is Julian Talbot, the ACT chapter chair. I joined ISRM for a couple of very specific reasons and also for a very specific mission, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. But a little about me. I've been involved in risk management for about 35 years now. Started in security and probably worked mostly in security risk management, but also broader risk in work health and safety, derivatives trading, options trading. And I've also worked a lot in general management, taking that risk management hat into general management from startups. And I've founded or co-founded a number of companies. I've been a CEO and C-suite and a company director. And so I see all of risk from this broader strategic background. In the last 5 years, I've worked predominantly with startups, with small businesses that want to grow into viable, profitable business and into medium-sized businesses. And so, I joined ISRM because I have very much in my heart a strategic view of how risk management should work. And I also have a specific focus that I'll invite you to participate in, and that is in improving or helping small to medium enterprises lift their game in terms of risk management. And this very specific focus, because small to medium enterprises are the backbone of any nation. They're the people that employ most people. They are the companies that start out and they grow into Google or Apple or Atlassian. Australia has all the capability and talent and resources and the finances to be a Silicon Valley in its own right. But we tend to be risk averse, and we tend to also let those enterprises go offshore. Now, COVID really exposed the vulnerability and the lack of risk management in small businesses. Big businesses have the skills, the resources, the capability and the awareness to manage risks, and they generally do that pretty well for the most part. But when COVID came along, it really exposed how vulnerable our small to medium enterprises are. When you've got half a dozen or maybe even 200 employees, you don't have a lot of resources for risk. You don't have a lot of skills even, and often some of them lack the awareness. And had we not had the government intervention recently with funding and support, we would have seen 10%, 20%, maybe 30% of our small to medium enterprises go to the wall. And that would be a tragic loss. And I think it's great that the government bailed them out, but we will all pay for that as taxpayers. So my mission is to help risk management in that level, and not just financial. I mean, we're in a massive time of change, and I think things like cybersecurity are going to be ever more important. So the IP that we build in our businesses, which can go on to build new technologies, new platforms, new medicines, all sorts of resources, is vulnerable to being stolen. I mean, if you take a simple example, the plans for the ASIO building here in Canberra, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, were stolen allegedly by Chinese hackers, not through a government network, but they were stolen through a subcontractor who didn't have the appropriate risk management in place to protect that. So, this is a national, and I speak internationally because I think as part of ISRM, it's an international approach, but our sphere of influence here is Australia and New Zealand. And if anything we can do to improve risk management, and now and I think Canberra is really important in this, and it's sort of probably a funny thing to say because Canberra is known for politicians and hot air and bureaucracy, and nothing happens from week to week. But if we want a national approach to broader risk management, then we need to influence federal policy. We need grants, we need training, we need policy, maybe even legislation as we had in the WHS, although that's probably a very last resort. But the plan here is to get a monthly meeting going, and you'll see them on the isrm.org.au website. So we'll have public meetings probably 10 months of the year, so almost each month, apart from around the end of year. We'll have perhaps webinars, but I think in Canberra we're blessed because we can get together. It's a very small place. And I'm inviting anybody who's interested in this and would like to build a network of policymakers, of risk managers, of people who are involved in this at any level. We'll also be running some closed Chatham House luncheon workshops where we can talk about more confidential issues, maybe your organisation, things that we don't necessarily want to put out into the public just yet, but we can grow the ideas and then seek to influence. So you'll find those presentations on the ISRM website. If you'd like to be involved with the committee, we're building a strong committee of dedicated individuals here, and I'd invite you to get in touch with me. The website, the email is there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I've got a juliantalbot.com with a contact form. Please get in touch, and I'd really like to hear from you so that we can work together. So that's my mission, building risk management in small to medium enterprises by influencing federal government policy and just broadening that conversation. So thank you very much, and that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Catherine now in Queensland. Cheers.
very inadequate every time I go to one of these groups because everyone that I sit and listen to sounds so incredibly credentialed and experienced, and I consider myself really lucky every time I go to any of these sorts of events. So I think that's one of the things that really spurred me on to become very interested in the chapter, and more particularly for my sins or good deeds, I'm not quite sure which, leading the Queensland chapter chair as chair. So I'm very, very feel very special and very privileged to do that. By way of background, again, for my sins, I think I've had a really bad past life or something, not very well behaved, but I'm a lawyer by background, and I think I've had a really interesting career, and where it's led me to now is having a real interest and passion for risk management, and particularly the governance around that, and the convergence of a whole lot of disciplines that we talk about, that essentially all boil down to good business and really making great, informed, well-timed decisions, and making sure that we can quickly pivot and change if we make the wrong decision at any time. So for me, as I said, I won't tell you my age, but long career in private practice law, and I took up the position as a general counsel, company secretary at a Queensland financial institution, and over time that position was just fabulously morphed and grew into looking at taking responsibility for some risk and compliance matters as well, and that's where my interest and my passions really for risk management really starting to develop and mature at that point. I'm very fortunate to work in a great job at a wonderful organisation that operates globally as an investment manager, and we have just such diversity of industry in our portfolio companies and client base, and I really love what I do. And I think for me, for risk management, and certainly what I hope to bring to the conversation in Queensland and through the broader network, is that we do really need to leverage that diversity. But if you boil it all down, I think it doesn't matter how big or small your organisation is, or how seemingly complex or how seemingly simple it may be. We all face these challenges, and I think we can always learn from each other. And I'm really very focused on building a really good, strong network, not just in a formal sense through meetings or through get-togethers or whatnot, but just actually starting to really have a good support system, so that if you actually need to pick up the phone and have a chat to someone about it and discuss an approach or what have you, then people have that opportunity to connect with each other. So when I think about why I joined, as I said, I'm very fascinated. My good friend John Brennan just spoke to you a couple of speakers ago, and he's the Victorian chapter chair. And I met John on a course on risk, and I remember that John and a number of other people in the course that we had undertaken had some really great and interesting conversations around risk management and shared some common challenges. So I'm hoping that together we can replicate or build on those sorts of experiences and get some really good support and thinking going. So if I had to put it on three words of what Queensland looks like, it's connect, support and leverage. So I think I'm a very parochial Queenslander, and I come from North Queensland originally and have the pleasure of living in South East Queensland now. But I think for us Queenslanders, sometimes we've just got to make sure that we're actually always in the conversation, and that our regional members and friends and professional colleagues can certainly be involved in those conversations. So I'm really looking forward to trying to engender that sense of connection for all Queensland-based professionals, and also then in turn the broader network. And I think that we can really do some great work with making those connections. I think support for each other. So again, informal and formal support networks. I think that's just so critical. We've all got really tough jobs, and we've got really busy lives and busy jobs, and we really need to make good decisions based on good information. Sometimes just being able to pick up the phone or being able to say, hey, look, have you done this before? How would you approach approach this, or am I completely off the wall with this? I think if we can start creating those sorts of networks, friendships, and relationships throughout the broader network in that informal and formal sense, then I think that we'll really together we'll really kick some great goals. And leverage is another word that I've used. I think leverage, sometimes it's one of those words that you think, oh, gee, I wish they'd stop saying that. But I think it's really important because in a very, very cost-constrained environment, we're all trying to prioritise resources and tools. And often, as I said, despite our diversity of industry and problem, often the same issue has been dealt with someone else before. And I think if we can leverage and share tools both in the ISRM and the broader organisation internationally, which I think is quite amazing, is that we've got access to tap into those and the great thinking of so many wonderful people across the world as well as locally. I think that's an enormous opportunity, but again, ourselves to really try and leverage what each other can bring to the table. Look, with any of these organisations and any organisation I've ever been involved with, it's always, sometimes it's hard to find the time, but I think genuinely you always learn more than you'll ever give back. So I really look forward to engaging with my Queensland colleagues, but also my broader colleagues in the broader network. So welcome and thank you very much. Really looking forward to what lies ahead.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to echo Catherine's thoughts. It's been such a privilege to join this very esteemed group of individuals who are all very experienced and thought leaders in the field. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see and hear all the speakers in the last couple of days. It's been truly illuminating. A little bit about me. I started at Edith Cowan University a good long time ago, where I was a lecturer in finance at all levels, and I specialized in financial risk modeling, which is where a lot of my research went to as well. I also taught professional communications and won several awards while I was there, which was great. Following that, I spent several years as a consultant in project management and systems implementation across multiple sectors, and also spent several years in the security industry, teaching in Australia and around the world. I joined the Risk to Solution group about 2 years ago. I haven't looked back since. And I act as the WA State Manager, as well as the General Manager of our Accredited Training Division, Safety and Rescue Australia. I'm a lifelong martial artist and Director of Combat Arts Institute of Australia. As you can see, I'm an avid musician, but most importantly, I'm a family man. I'm a proud husband, father to a beautiful girl and 2 elderly cats. And that's what actually really drives me to look at the way that we look and tackle risk as a society and as a community, locally and globally. And I think that the way that we approach risk really needs to change. The word VUCA has been thrown around a lot over the last 3 days. And it is the truth. We live in a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that means things change quickly. We often don't have all the information that we need. Everything is interconnected, and it's very hard to establish strong cause and effect relationships. And pardon me. And with that in mind, we're facing some new and challenging times ahead. And I really believe that the way forward is collaboration and open discussion about the risks that we face and how we make sure we have strong communities and a strong economy, and how we thrive in a world that is likely to keep changing at a rapid pace, and that's likely to continue and evolve. So I really think that risk is something that needs to be embedded in how we live our lives on a day-to-day basis, not just in work, not just in business, but how we live our lives. Every decision that we make is a risk and return decision, and I think we need to look at that and educate more on that. I think the ISRM is a critical vehicle in achieving that, especially because it was founded in the spirit of collaboration and open discussion, which is something that we really need to move forward. what I would love to see is the WA chapter bring together like-minded risk professionals who together will contribute and collaborate and facilitate thought leadership on strategic risk and the risk that we face in these challenging times. I'd like to make sure that the ISRM is also a good neighbor and that we work collaboratively with other risk organizations and government organizations and departments to achieve those objectives, because that's really what we need to do. We have to collaborate. So the goal for 2021 for our chapter is to start by raising awareness. This will be done by hosting networking events and campfire events to build a community of dedicated risk professionals, and to establish the ISRM as a cooperative, good neighbor to other organizations that will allow us to facilitate discussion and come up with solutions to the problems that we are very much likely to face going forward. It's a privilege and an honor to be the WA State Chair. If you need to contact me, you've got my email at the bottom of the screen there, wachair@isrm.org.au. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Join the ISRM. It's a great opportunity for professionals and students and everybody alike. So thanks very much for your time, and I'll pass you on to Kerry in South Australia.
Thanks very much, Ron. Just do a quick check to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yes, all good, Kerry.
Thanks very much, Joe. Look, thank you so much. I am going to mirror and echo some of the sentiment that's been said before me. It's a fantastic group and cohort that Joe and Gav have been able to group together, and I think that speaks a lot for the dedication and commitment to the Institute of Strategic Risk Management here in Australia and New Zealand, and obviously further afield as well. What's really struck me listening to the other chairs is some key common threads in relation to good governance, passion, collaboration and connection. So for me, I guess everyone who's spoken before me is reinforcing the reasons why I've joined the IRSM. For me, I think to give you a little bit more about myself and give you some detail on my background is that good governance is the foundation that I always work from. I'm always driven to deliver positive customer outcomes through win-win solutions, and encouraging people to leverage risk as an enabler, making sure that our leaders are taking the right risks to develop those innovative solutions and to deliver on strategic objectives. I've been really fortunate. My career has enabled me to travel. It's always been in basically risk and transfer of risk, so across risk and resilience. I've had positions spanning across insurance, working for global insurance broking firms, working at Lloyd's in London for a time, working for elders in agriculture here back in Adelaide, and tourism, and now, fortunately, working in critical service and infrastructure here at SA Water. So what I do here predominantly is partner with our leaders and focused on our most valuable asset, which is our people. For me, risk is central to everything we do, as are our people, so they're interconnected and can't be separated out. I was fortunate in 2019 to study and learn from some really great lecturers, one of those being Gav himself, and my postgrad in psychology of risk really underpins my thinking and taking a really different proactive approach to risk and delivering innovative but simple fit for purpose solutions. I think sometimes in the past people have been very committed to standards rather than using those standards as guidelines and developing what is a fit for purpose solution for organisations that we're representing and that we're actually there to protect. So for me, looking at what I would like to achieve for the SH chapter of the ISRN is to make sure that we can leverage off of personal connection, because I think we've all been desperate for that over the last 18 months or 12 months, but also to leveraging off these really great virtual and strong connections we can now establish, not only across Australia and across to New Zealand, but also more broadly, as Catherine mentioned previously. So for me, it's about sharing what's working within our organisations, and most importantly, sharing why it's working for us, and raising that bar collectively to make sure that we're raising standards and challenging one another over these next few years together. For me, the focus will be making sure that we create a supportive body of professionals, and also I think one of our strongest points of difference will be where we actually collaborate and share those ideas. So I will be looking to arrange informal opportunities for people to catch up, certainly sharing contact details and creating virtual collaborations as well throughout the year with issues of relevance and interests between peers, and just holding those sessions both virtually and physically to get the most out of it. So I think that's enough for me. I hope that's given you a good taster of what we plan to do, but what I would encourage you all to do is to join, sign up and actively participate in the ISRM. And I'll pass on to Gavin Pearce in New Zealand. Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry, and kia ora, everyone. My name's Gavin Pearce, and I have the privilege of being the chapter chair for New Zealand. So, unlike my colleagues who get a state of Australia to look after, I get a whole country. Now, I grew up in New Zealand, and right from an early age, just loved the complexity of life and everything in it, which I think is what sort of led me through my career into insurance and then ultimately into risk management, which I got into about 6.5 years ago, whilst working in Sydney. And I connected with a large number of people there, and then fortunately managed to sneak back into New Zealand in late 2019 before COVID hit, and all the fun that brought with it. So for me, the opportunity when Gav reached out to me and said, would I like to be the chair for New Zealand? My first question was, well, what is the Institute of Strategic Risk Management all about, and how does it fit with other organisations that we have in New Zealand? And I think for me, just making sure that we're going to work together with those other organisations, and to that end, I'm also a member of the RIMS New Zealand and Pacific community, and on their events committee. I'm also a member of the New Zealand Society of Actuaries, and I'm on their Enterprise Risk Management Committee. So that kind of puts me in a unique position to be able to bring all three entities together to work collaboratively to further the conversations around risk management. I feel in New Zealand, there's certainly a lot that we've done in the risk management space. There's still more to do. There's a lot more to learn. And certainly my role, as I see it, is to try and facilitate those conversations, raise the awareness of risk management. I particularly like where the Institute of Strategic Risk Management is coming from. Getting strategy and risk management into the same sentence, let alone conversation, I think is where it needs to be. Too often the conversations around risk management within a number of industries is very low level, very operational. And for me, there's nothing more frustrating than running a strategic risk workshop to discuss all the risks of the strategy you've already set. So, having the conversation around risk as part of the conversation around strategy, and talking about the downside risks and the upside opportunities all at once, is really where I'm, wanting to focus on. Planning on running some networking sessions. I'm based in Auckland, so unfortunately that's where most of them will be until I can find some people to coerce onto the New Zealand chapter committee who might reside in other areas of New Zealand, and then we can start to sort of further those networks, and certainly connect in with the Australian state chairs and chapters and risk professionals across Australia. One thing for me that I also find quite interesting with risk management, and for those that were on the conference yesterday listening to Dr. Carl Gibson, is the complexity of risk management. And I think sometimes humans just have this lack of ability to understand the complexities of life and everything in it, and oversimplify things. And I think for me, trying to maintain that sense of understanding of the world we live in. And I think, Dr. Carl talked about sort of the next evolution of risk management being getting into neuroscience, which aligns a lot with some of my earlier studies around biology. So keen to sort of explore that area of risk management as well. But anyway, enough from me. If you'd like to connect with me, I am on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only chief risky dude on LinkedIn, or you've got my email address there. But with that, I'll hand back to Joe to facilitate our Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gavin, and thank you to everybody for persevering through some slight technical glitches, but I think we've done well to get all these faces on screen and voices matched up more or less. So thank you very much for your own perseverance, resilience, and dare I say, presilience. All right, folks, if you have questions for the state chapter chairs, whether it's for your own regional chair, you're at the person in your neighbourhood, or whether it's for all of them as a whole, please feel free to click on the Q&A box and submit your question there. To get us started, I have a question for all of you, so I'll go through in order the original speaking order. My question for you is, many of the people that are listening are probably already members of various organisations. They probably have already been part of several organisations where they felt like they paid their membership and didn't get a lot in return, or didn't derive a lot of value from it. And we all know that a lot of industry memberships, it's very much a case of what you get out, what you put in. But for you specifically, what do you see the benefits of being a member of the ISRM in your chapter and also globally? I'll start with John.
Thanks, Joe. That's a really good question. And I'll start with a comparison to probably the most pertinent other membership-based organisation, being the Risk Management Institute of Australia. I'm a member of the RMIA, and what I'd say is RMIA does an amazing job and has, particularly in the last 3 to 4 years, transformed itself to become, I think, one of the great teaching institutions for risk management professionals in Australia. So one of the things that I think is really important for us at ISRM to make sure that we do is work with RMIA and differentiate ourselves from not being in that space. So a little bit like what I talked about in my introduction. Certainly the area that I think we can move very much into is around broader thought leadership, looking in a more far-sighted way at what's coming over the global horizon. And I think that the real opportunity now post-COVID is that we see so many people who are starting to think about the things that we've thought about for a long time, but the thinking is being articulated in a very unstructured way. There's a lot of hysteria around it. There's a lot of kind of media mismanagement of risk-type conversations. It's just crying out for a senior thought-leading institute in Australia to step into that space and become the trusted voice in strategic risk management. And I'd love us to be able to do that and make sure that we have great, institutional partners like places like the RMIA to do the things that they do really well as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that, John. And Julian, your thoughts?
Sure. I'm going to paraphrase JFK and say, ask not what your organisation can do for you, but what you can do for your organisation. And I say this in the context that, yes, it's great. I'm a member of many organisations and there are benefits from being in those organisations. But I think with ISRM, we're talking about strategic risk management, and I encourage people to join because it's what we can do, not just for ISRM, but through ISRM to improve society, to improve, we have Elon Musk building SpaceX so that humankind can get to Mars and get off the planet because the planet will eventually die. And I think we face all these risks in our society, our neighbours, our friends, family, cousins, our organisations and institutions. They will face these risks and they need people like us who are dedicated to step up, and I think ISRM is the perfect venue for that. That's my 2 cents.
Excellent. Thank you, Julian. I'll throw now to Andrew in New South Wales.
I would just like to reiterate the points that were already raised, but one thing, and I think you can get that from the introductions from the respective chairs and obviously Joe and Gav, I think there's a lot of passion in this organisation. And I like what John said about being a trusted voice, because I think, yeah, you're right. There is many organisations out there that can provide services, but one of the things that we really want to push is actually how to apply the theory in practice. So John was saying thought leadership. I don't know how many conferences and events that I've attended, and you go, yeah, okay, that's wonderful. They give you a high level perspective around what needs to be done. But in terms of execution, very challenging. John talks about risk culture. I mean, how many organisations have you been involved with that actually have been able to embed the right risk culture? How many organisations have been able to integrate strategy and risk effectively and link that to key measures for success? And I think the thought leadership, I think we really want to focus on the connectivity. So drawing out what works and what doesn't work through those communities in practice, and actually really building a strong community and that connectedness both across Australia and New Zealand, and then more broadly across ISRM globally. So, and as Julian said, if you want an outcome or you want to be a change, you've basically got to be involved in the change. So, hence the reason why we're looking for similar passionate people. And as Catherine said, we're all very busy, but the reality is, if you actually improve outcomes, we all can appreciate if we make better decisions, there's less rework, you get better outcomes. And I think collectively we can support that. And as Julian said, focusing on strategic risk, because there is many things in the market around tactical areas, but I think there's a real gap in terms of linking it all together and how you effectively embed that within an organisation. Thanks, Joe.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Let's throw to Kath in Queensland.
Thank you. I think I want to build a bit more on that conversation in terms of how do you actually put this great theory into practical risk management. And I do think that ISRM gives us all a great opportunity to, at one point, really focus on what's important from a long-term strategic perspective, keep our eye above to see a little bit ahead of what may come around the corner, as we've all experienced. We just can't see that far. But for me, I think there is that great opportunity for people at all levels of their risk management journey to really focus on, given that we may not know the exact details of what is around the corner, and we can at least keep a watching brief on it, how do we actually instill in our people, in our organisations, not only in risk teams but also in the business, that really good decision-making culture and risk management culture. So I think that there is a great opportunity there to link that. What's important long term, but how do we actually get our people and our businesses to really make great business decisions? And I think when I've been reflecting on some of the commentary this morning, and again, probably because I'm so old, I've been really lucky. I've been in a number of different positions. So, as a general counsel, as a risk manager, as a CEO, as a board chair, as a director, and often a paid consultant as well. But what strikes me is that in all of those different capacities, we really just want the same outcome, which is what's the best decision to make about this really difficult thing, best information to make that decision, and be able to really ensure that the right people, bodies, or organisations are making the decisions in a timely and efficient way. To do all that sounds very easy, but I think that there's this great opportunity that ISRM can do is to build that capability in people in those various different capacities to really start thinking in a very practical way about complex problems of which we just won't know the individual makeup of each of those issues. So I would just absolutely, again, I'm like everyone else on the call, I've paid a lot of money, and I still will continue to pay a lot of money to other organisations as well. And I think there's a place for the good work that each of those do, and each association I'm a member of and involved with does bring something different to the table. And likewise, I see our ISRM doing that. And I think given that there is just such a constraint on resources, time, and we've got to be efficient, we've just all got to collaborate on this stuff. So I definitely don't see that membership of ISRM is in any way anything but complementary to good work that the other organisations like RIM, governance institutions, Institute and the like are doing and have cut their own positioning out. So I think there's definitely a place for us, and look forward to finding that place together with you. So highly encourage you to jump on board.
Excellent. Thank you, Kath. Throwing out to Ron in WA for your thoughts.
Thanks, Joe. And I actually don't have too much to add to what all of my learned colleagues have already said, but I think a couple of key points that have popped up for me is the first one is many hands make light work. And we are facing some significant challenges, and what we really need is thought leadership and collaboration, thinking short-term and long-term on a strategic level. We see the way the ISRM has grown, even just in the short amount of time that it's been around, shows that there is a need for that and that people do want to work together. All the other associations are obviously doing amazing work, and I see ISRM as a form of connector where we can bring everybody together and discuss the different issues so we can come up with better solutions. So some of the key words that have popped up for me, which I think highlight that just from listening to everybody who's spoken so far, broader thought leadership, becoming a trusted partner or a trusted voice. Julian, I really like what you said about doing through the ISRM as opposed to doing for, or what the ISRM can do for you. Community, collaboration, and I think the thing that really puts all that together is proactivity. We need to work together to be proactive about what's coming, to make those changes and facilitate better thought leadership on that. So I think the ISRM is an excellent vehicle for that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ron. All right, let's go to Kerry in South Australia.
Hi, yeah, some very good suggestions and ideas about what we can offer, and I will mirror that in that something that what's happened here in SA Water recently, we've just launched our new strategy, and what is central to launching that strategy is keeping things simple. And I think that the point of difference that we can offer, and I think it was you, Andrew, that you mentioned about executing, is that a lot of people get stuck in the theory but don't have the real solution of how to operationalise things and how to execute. So I think for the fact that we're all in these real life positions, we're facing the same challenges, and that if we have that ability to collaborate and be open and sharing with what is working, what's failed, and what we learnt from that, that we can all raise that bar a little bit quicker together.
Absolutely, well said. And for closing thoughts on this question, of course, the Chief Risky Dude in New Zealand.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I think, echoing back to the conversation I had with Gav when he talked me into coming on board with the ISRM, was the focus on not just risk professionals getting together and talking about risk management, but actually trying to bring in board members and CEOs, and so those people that are actually setting the strategy of an organisation, and hence the focus on strategic risk management. So I think that to me both meant that to me illustrated the uniqueness of the ISRM, and also then the ability to be complementary and collaborative with the other organisations in New Zealand. So and I think to the comments made earlier, I think it is about getting on board, getting involved, telling us what you want, as potential members or actual members, ask the questions, to make a good decision, you need to find out all the information you can. So get in contact, we can discuss it further, and yeah, hopefully you get involved.
Excellent. Thank you very much to all of you for your very detailed answers to that question. If I could throw in one just for my own perspective, one of the most amazing benefits of the ISRM for me, as like all of you members, I'm a member of other organisations, and the thing I love about the ISRM is that even though it's now certainly a large organisation with 20 international chapters and multiple sub-chapters, it still has the small organisation family feel. And that means that if I need a risk expert from the Nordic countries, I can just look through my network and find someone at MISRM or FISRM after their name, and I'll be connected with them through that country, and I'll have a resource that has local boots on the ground experience working in that environment. Same thing for Africa, same thing for Asia or APAC or anywhere else in the world that ISRM operates. We actually have these open relationships now with real risk experts and thought leaders in those regions where we don't have to second guess and go on a recommendation of a recommendation. We know now that we have this amazing global network to draw upon. And to me, other than what everyone else has said, that has been a tremendous benefit to me. All right, my next question for you, and again, please, if you do have any other questions that you'd like to ask, use that chat box. This one I'm going to direct to Julian first, because I know it's something that he's particularly passionate about discussing. And that is, what do you think? I mean, we talk about strategic risks as being separate from tactical risk or operational risk. Strategically thinking, what are the big risks on the horizon in the next decade that perhaps we're not paying enough attention to?
Gee, that's a great question, Joe, and it's something I do think about a lot. We are coming into a time of unprecedented change, and I think if you look at human history, you look at this, the hockey stick, I think we're down here at the bottom of the hockey stick, and I think change and volatility and our connectivity, the sheer demographics and population on this planet are game changing. It's to the point where I think if we invent a time machine in 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 years, people are going to come back to the first century of the third millennia to now, because it's going to be so fascinating to watch. But I think that involves a whole range of things. We just take the Internet of Things for a very simple example, where we'll have so many IP addresses that basically every human being for the next 100 years could buy 10,000 things a year, and every single one of those things could have an IP address on the network. So connectivity changes the world in terms of risk profile, technology and AI. So if I had to say two big things, it's going to be probably cybersecurity in relation to the Internet of Things. It's going to be technology and AI, but also nanotech, robotics, genetic technology, our integration, the man-machine interface, and with all that comes all the risk of recession, of war, geopolitical risks, all the civil unrest that we potentially see, in the last election transition in the US, and with COVID, it's these risks are not going to get any smaller. And as the population grows to an estimated 12 billion people in the next 50 or so years, they will become more predominant. So I think now is our opportunity to get it right, because when we do that switch over from humans to human and AI as a truly connected interface, that's a game changer. Forget about cataclysmic events like a meteor taking out the Earth, or eventually the sun will expand and absorb the Earth. But we've got 400 or 500 million years to sort that one out. But right now, unprecedented change. We need to get it right. So this is why I'm so passionate about risk right now. Thanks.
Absolutely. I might throw a spanner in the works and randomise the order this time. So we will start where we finished last time. Gav Pearce, do you have any thoughts on emerging risks through the next 10 years?
Yes. So I was actually having a conversation about a week ago with an expert in the sort of climate change, sustainability and sort of ecology sort of area. And it was actually quite frightening. I didn't realise there are 15 sort of globally important ecosystems around the world, including the Amazon rainforest, the Arctic ice, the Antarctic ice, Greenland, and a number of others. 9 of those 15 ecosystems have collapsed. So the Amazon rainforest as an ecosystem has collapsed. There is no coming back. It will not regenerate. Even if we stop logging it today, it will turn to grasslands. So, when you sort of start to think about that and the change that will bring will be quite rapid. And I think this is, again, going back to sort of human psychology. We bury our head in the sand. There's too much information. We don't want to hear about it. We don't think it will happen in our lifetime. So to me, that's actually an area I want to sort of do a lot more research in, have lots more conversation about, the consequences of that ecological breakdown and what that means to us. So yeah, that's my 5 cents.
Excellent, thank you. Kerry, any thoughts from you?
Hi, just taking myself off mute. Yeah, look, I'm really interested in just layering on from what Gavin was just talking about there is not only the environmental and the climate change impact, but the impact it's going to have on our current and future generations and their psyche. When you look at the school-age children of today and what they've had to deal with is that climate change is real, it's not going away, and it's their problem. They have had iPhones and technology thrust in their hands from the age of 2. And they're in the middle of a pandemic. So I just think culturally, psychologically, What we need to do is support that next generation to make sure that they're well equipped and skilled to manage the risks that they're going to face in their lifetime and future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that 100%. All right, I know. I can see John Brennan is leaning forward. He's ready to speak. So, John, what are your thoughts on the question, John?
No, just really, it's a great question, because when I work with leaders, particularly in kind of helping them get comfortable with risk, it's a bit of a provocative statement, but I typically say, in 10 years' time, one of these 6 risks is going to put you out of business: cyber, habitat, energy, food, water, or biological risk. You just work it out. You think about your supply chain, you think about your ecosystem, and if you haven't already made the connections, then it may be too late. But this is the business that you're in as a risk leader now.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot to unpack in that 40-second statement, but I appreciate you sharing that to give some people some sleepless nights.
Gets the juices flowing.
That's right. Andrew Bissett, I might just ask you, you've been involved in risk in a variety of different areas, different organisations, large organisations, smaller organisations, seen a lot, you've got a lot of experience. What do you think is coming next? What are we not paying enough attention to?
I'll reiterate the points that my colleagues have made, but one of the things that that I'm seeing is, like, obviously, I want to talk about changing world order. I think we're all need to be aware around, well, globally, what does that mean for different countries? But one of the things that I see is going to become more and more important is actually defining what value is for an organisation, and it sort of mirrors the points that were raised before, because I think the focus in the past is on profitability, but we're seeing a lot of talk around quadruple bottom line. I think making the right distinction between what is value in terms of social, economic, cultural, and economic outcomes. And I think if organisations don't self-regulate in that space, they will be regulated to focus on that. Because I think environmental change, cyber, I think there's a lot of things that's sort of building groundswell. So I think that's one of the important things that organisations need to be considering. I think if you understand what is value and how you're going to measure value, then ultimately it ties back to the points that John raised. Then you can put measures in place or put plans in place to try and address that. But I think that will be the change. It will move away from just profit with greater consideration around those 4 elements of value.
Absolutely. There's an interesting comment you made there about regulation, and I think about the industries that feel like they're over-regulated now, and usually that's because they had the opportunity to self-regulate and didn't take it, or didn't do a good enough job. So
and it goes back to the point that John said earlier around, many organisations put process in place, but they don't link culture, and they don't do the work on culture to get the right behaviours. And if you look sort of at a number of the studies that have been done in terms of how many leadership training courses are out there? But basically, the research says that probably 10% of people that attend leadership courses actually get value out of it. So what is that telling us about our sort of current and future leaders? They might not be equipped to deal with the changes that are coming.
Absolutely.
So I'll pause there.
Thank you, Andrew. We might need to do a future webinar on that topic. Folks, we are coming up. We've got about 6 minutes left. So what I'd like to do is give everyone a chance to compose a 1-minute final salute, I guess, to summarise your thoughts or any messaging you have for people that are considering joining your chapter. I'll go through in reverse order. So we'll start. Sorry, I'll start with Kath, because Kath and Ron didn't get a chance to contribute to that question. So Kath, your final 1-minute summary that you'd like to tell people?
Oh, get on board. There's no such thing these days as risk being a very boring profession. It's just something that whether you're consider yourself to be a risk manager, a risk professional, or if you're in business, I think the ISRM is going to just give you a great opportunity to start really working on thinking about how do you make great decisions in a world that's continuing to be surprising and fast moving. We can give you that opportunity in a really efficient way, and we can do that in a way that actually connects and works with a broader organisation of practitioners of business people and our other similar organisations that are also doing great work. So, and I think if you're not convinced that risk and compliance professionals have certainly changed, let us do that for you, and bring all your mates.
Well said, well said. All right, Ron, your final thoughts.
Thanks, Joe. So, like I said, I'm a finance guy by trade. So for me, everything is risk and return, right? And I think every decision that we make as a human being, from getting up in the morning and deciding whether you're going to put your left leg or your right leg down on the floor when you get out of bed, to managing a multi-billion-dollar, project, everything is a risk-return decision. And with that in mind, we need to learn how to make those decisions better. Given the challenge that we're about to face and all the immediate and scary threats that everybody raised in the previous question, I think we need to work together to come up with solutions to do that. And I think education collaborations are the best tools for doing that. So we learn how to make good decisions from the ground up. So for example, borrowing from what Kerry mentioned, we need to teach our kids how to make better decisions from day dot so that they don't make the same mistakes that our generations have made. We don't end up where we are now. I think the ISRM as a collaborative tool is a really good way of doing that, because it has the option to bring in people from all levels to generate open discussion that will allow us to come up with solutions that can really make an impact on how we live and go forward. So come down, bring your friends, sign up. It's going to be lots of fun.
Well said. All right, Kerry, I might give you the next opportunity for your final message.
I think we've just created our new tagline, haven't we? Just do it and bring your friends. I think that's brilliant. So we've all got our own informal networks that we look to, we reach out to when we do want to use people as sounding boards, and this is the perfect platform to do it. The greater thing is that you're actually expanding and multiplying your networks tenfold, 100 times broader. And for the fact that you've got this virtual environment that is collaborative, supportive of other professional networks as well, that's our point of difference. So yeah, absolutely get on board, please, and bring your friends.
Well, we weren't needing a tagline, so bring your friends may as well work. All right, Gav Pearce, your final thoughts.
Yeah, echo the comments that have already been made. Really, risk management. It's not an individual sport. It's certainly not a passive sport. It's something that we all need to get involved with. And I think for me, having got into risk management about 6.5 years ago, I'm at the point where I realised there is so much that I don't know. And the things that I do know or have learned have come from talking to other people and across different industries, be it water, manufacturing, mining, insurance, whatever. And across different countries. So I think that is the way that risk management needs to be. If you've got a tough problem to solve, someone else is probably going through the same thing. If you've got a great idea, share it. So yeah, as I step forward, come forward, get involved, bring your friends.
It really has become a thing now. All right, Andrew, your final thoughts.
I think we have a real opportunity to make a positive change. I don't know what everyone thinks, but I'm sort of tired of reading in the press globally around poor decisions that have been made and the implications that has on individuals and communities. So I think let's work together, because I think we've got a great opportunity to really be a positive change and try and help companies realise that help them realise what value actually is, and then how to be more proactive rather than reactive. Because one of the things that generally risk and resilience and compliance professionals love, they love a crisis because it focuses management's attention. But the reality is, how do we get management to focus on what's important before the crisis actually occurs? So, and it goes back to the point that Gavin says, we can't do it alone, because it's hard to be the shining light in an organisation. You need groundswell, you need thought leadership, you need a network of sort of trusted colleagues that can share thought leadership, and they can help you come up with practical ways to implement better outcomes within the organisations you work. That's my spiel.
Absolutely.
Sorry, not
Thank you,
skills,
Andrew.
but that's my overview.
Nice. All right, John Brennan, your final thoughts.
Diversity, diversity, diversity. ISRM will thrive through diversity, different experiences, different backgrounds, different people, different cultures. That's what we need to be able to bring these conversations alive and to start to bring different experiences through to a collective perspective on how we create great organisations, great communities. And of course, the opposite is true. More of the same people talking about the same stuff, reinforcing what we already know, won't help. So, let's see some new faces.
Absolutely, I echo that 100%, and we'll save the final comment from the man who I think has probably written the most books of anyone else on the screen at the moment. Julian, your final thoughts.
Thanks, Joe. My final thoughts: risk permeates everything, and it's one of the few things in life that is ubiquitous across every business, every profession, every trade, every individual. And it's so important to get it right. And we need so many disciplines. We need psychology and culture. We need medicine. We need engineering. We need all the techniques and technologies that we can bring together. And yet, sadly, the risk profession is well behind many other professions. If you think about safety management, think about engineering, think about law, medicine, health, they have significantly more advanced in terms of their profession. And so this is not just an opportunity for us to do it, but I think it's critical for society, for all of us. So, just do it, get on board. That sums it up from my point of view. Come join and play. Cheers.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to all our chapter chairs. As Dr. Gav mentioned throughout the last 2 days, this is a 100% volunteer organisation. There is no one in this organisation that's drawing a salary or any kind of kickback for donating their time. Everyone here, they're all serious professionals with serious jobs, and trying to carve out a couple of hours of your week is difficult at the best of times. So for you all to make yourself available for this webinar and obviously for your ongoing involvement with your chapters, it is hugely appreciated by all of us in the regional team, and I'm sure in the global team as well. So thank you very much. Please get in touch with them, connect with them on LinkedIn, or send them an email from the email address that was on the slides. Thank you, folks. And it is time now to introduce our final keynote for the 3-day event, and that is the incredible Joanne Hewitt. Joanne is the Chief Executive Officer for Achieve Australia. She joined Achieve in August 2019 as a CEO, where she is responsible for the strategic direction and growth of the organisation and delivery of quality service and outcomes. Prior to this, she held a role of Executive Director of Disability Executive Director Disability at the Benevolent Society, and has extensive experience in the not-for-profit sector, leading complex organisations through periods of significant growth and transformation. Joanne will be speaking to us about reducing risk through cultural change. Without further ado, here is Joanne Hewitt.
Thanks for that introduction, Joe, and good morning, everyone. There have been such great presentations at this conference so far, and I feel really honoured to be telling our organisation's story today, so thanks so much for listening. There's no doubt that 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us, and one that's tested our collective resilience, our business models, our systems, our staff, and of course our leadership. Today, I wanted to tell you the story of our organisation and how we reduced risks presented by the COVID-19 pandemic by a focus on building a strong, resilient organisational culture. This is certainly not Risk Management 101, but a description of how we moved through what was an existential threat that actually pre-existed COVID-19 and navigated through some significant impacts that were presented by the pandemic, emerging stronger and much more resilient as a result. Indeed, the crisis of COVID-19 prioritised essential organisational change for us. It, I think, enabled improvements to be expedited. It facilitated growth of our organisation and really inspired a new strategy to guide us into the future. Achieve Australia has been around since 1952, and we have a rich history of innovation, responding to and indeed leading social change for people with disability. Over the course of the past 7 years, of course, we've been part of one of Australia's most significant social changes, with the implementation of the NDIS. In 2017, Achieve expanded substantially through the acquisition of a tranche of services previously operated by the New South Wales Government. However, with the systems and processes we needed to realise the required revenue weren't in place. In addition, the National Disability Insurance Scheme was having some well-publicised teething problems themselves. And this perfect storm led to Achieve suffering significant and viability-threatening revenue leakages. Rapid growth from being a small grant-based NFP to a large $100 million commercial operation had tested the organisation's leadership, our systems and our culture, and the organisation, quite frankly, was left reeling and at great threat. By the time I joined the company as CEO in late 2019, the financial position had turned around slightly and sufficiently to keep our heads above water to commence planning for the future. However, there'd been a really high turnover during the previous year and the company's leadership was severely depleted. The senior leaders who remained, and there were but a few of them, were really exhausted, and the frontline staff were bunkered down, quite frankly. They were continuing to support their clients, but trust in the leadership and engagement with the Achieve brand was at an all-time low. So we went into 2020 with a newly formed executive team. So the first thing I did when I got here was to restructure the executive team and bring in a couple of new people and reinvigorate and change the roles of some of the existing people. We were still in the final stages of recruiting our senior leadership team and we were knee-deep in process improvement. And then COVID came along. When Australia first started to become aware of the possible threat of this newly emerging illness, we started, as did many similar organisations, assessing the risk posed to our clients and to our staff. By February, we were just starting to think through what we might need to put in place to mitigate or manage these risks. In late February, one of our clients was admitted to hospital with a chest infection. That was not an unusual situation. Many of our clients are quite frail and are prone to chest infections. He was discharged from hospital 3 days later, seemingly well, and he returned home to his 3 housemates who were clients of ours and our team of staff. The following day, his temperature spiked. An ambulance was called and he was admitted to hospital. This time he was tested and returned a positive result for COVID-19. This was catastrophic for the gentleman involved, who was already frail and, given the extent of his intellectual disability, was unable to understand the need for isolation from those he knew and loved. And that's hard enough for anybody, but for somebody who doesn't understand that they're sick, understand what's going on in the world, it was an incredibly difficult time for him and for his family and for our staff. He deteriorated really quickly and was unconscious for several weeks on a ventilator, and sadly he passed away and became one of those statistics that of Australia's death toll. In the meantime, we had a household with 3 other vulnerable men and a team of staff who'd been exposed to the virus when he came home from hospital. We had to quickly place that team of staff into self-quarantine in their own homes, help them prepare their families for what needed to happen, assemble an additional team of staff who were prepared to go in and support the clients in the exposed house, source what was then really scarce PPE, and provide really urgent training to that team of staff, as well as prepare our 80 other service sites, group homes and other sites for the possibility of exposure. Meanwhile, we set about closing our non-essential service sites and moved our head office staff to an online working environment in their homes in 3 days. We didn't know whether it was going to really work paying the payroll online or doing all the things we had to do, but we tested it out in 3 days and we got it all working and it worked pretty seamlessly. We made a decision early not to stand down any of our staff from our closed sites, but rather redeployed them into our essential group home services. And you know, that gave us the opportunity to provide additional supports, enhance our service delivery, and support people while they were having to shelter at home. We didn't know at first how we were going to afford that, but we just knew it was the right thing to do. Our amazing staff invented new ways for our clients to fill their days while they couldn't go out, providing fun educational activities. They held Zoom parties with other houses. They conducted online visits, sometimes with really elderly parents who'd never used Zoom before and who themselves were really fearful about their own vulnerabilities, let alone their concern for their adult children. So our staff were amazing in the way they pivoted their support of our clients. We did have the dubious honour of being the first disability service in Australia to have a client with COVID-19 in a group home. We were creating policy on the run, sometimes at midnight, and then getting up and making videos at 6 a.m. to distribute to our staff and the families of our clients. And we spend a lot of time talking to other service providers across the country and sharing our learnings and the systems that we were developed. Our sector were amazing and rallied together over this time, supporting each other to keep our population safe and indeed to influence government policy in relation to people with disability to ensure that our clients would not be left behind in this emerging crisis. But first, a whole lot of information came out for aged care providers about how to support their populations, but not for disability providers, and we have quite a different context that we work in. I'm pleased to report that despite long periods of lockdown that still come and go, and significant disruption to people's lives and their services, we've had no further clients or staff diagnosed with COVID-19 thus far. So that's been a fantastic result for us. Fortunately for our staff and clients, they'll be among the first to receive the vaccine. So there's a faint light at the end of this tunnel. Not only did we come through the COVID-19 crisis, though, which in itself I think would have been a significant achievement under the circumstances. In fact, we enjoyed a bumper year with many significant milestones. So I'm just highlighting a few things that happened for us throughout last year, and I think these individual things cannot be underestimated. So we formed an amazing leadership team. As I said, we restructured the executive in 2019 and continued to build our senior leadership team. Some people were starting in the middle of all this drama and never met us face to face, but started on Zoom as general managers and got to work and just helped us through this crisis and are still here today. And sometimes we walk into the office and it might be the first time we've actually seen someone in person, but we've worked really closely with them over this last 12 months. And we also focused on the frontline leadership team, ensuring that we had people at the front line who, because we couldn't go and visit all of our services because of the risks, and so we had to make sure that we had the right front line that were really supported very well to support our staff. As a team, we worked through a common training, coaching and development program, so we worked really solidly together doing that at the same time as we were delivering a much needed service and systems improvement. And we delivered a budget surplus for the first time in 4 years. So quite amazing. It was almost holding your breath and seeing what happened, but we did it. Our employee engagement score, we tested at the end of 2019 and then again in June of this year, of last year. Our employee engagement score increased from 2.6 at the end of 2019, to 3.9 over the 6-month period. So quite an extraordinary change in the engagement of our employees in a time of crisis, in a time when they couldn't see us face to face. So, I'm very proud of that result. We underwent 3 comprehensive external audits, so, to look at our accreditation for our various funding bodies, and they were intense and comprehensive, so required lots of policy change, people pulling together and working together. We finalised a joint venture early in 2020. We commenced a new company providing specialist disability housing, and we started a foundation devoted to research and innovation. So that commenced in September of last year. We opened 2 new service sites. One was a service enabling people with complex health needs who had been living in hospital and for whom staying in hospital, if things went pear-shaped, might have been a really risky proposition. We helped them to move into supported independence in their own apartments, and so that service is still running today. And we also opened a new sewing basket, which is our social enterprise. It's a shop selling repurposed fabric and haberdashery, and a warehouse which provides amazing opportunities for not just for people with disabilities to be employed, but for volunteers in the community, and really builds community. So we opened a new one on the Central Coast. We also undertook a strategic planning process, and we did that from the bottom up, including the voices of our staff and our clients in what they wanted to see happen, and delivered a really aspirational strategic plan for the years ahead. So throughout this extraordinary year, we didn't just survive, we actually thrived. So how did we do this? We recognised that we already had a burning platform and that standing still on that platform was never going to be an option. We formulated our leadership charter and publicly signed that via Zoom, promising our staff and our clients to build a culture of inclusion, collaboration and innovation. So we held a Zoom session, we publicised that to all of our staff, made our staff come along via Zoom, and also invited the families of our clients. And so that was a really public statement. Central to our success was a constant and consistent articulation of our passion and purpose at every opportunity. I mentioned before that, you know, when I first arrived, our staff really were very focused on their clients, but, you know, didn't really see the value of Achieve as an organisation. So really bringing front and centre what we as Achieve stand for. We reinforced to our staff who were under enormous duress themselves that common purpose and light on the hill to work towards, and really offered a compelling vision for the future of our clients, for the future of our organisation, and for the future of society as a whole, to bring forward the promise of inclusion for people with disability. We spent time and focus listening to and speaking with our staff, our clients and their families, and usually via Zoom. So we learnt new ways to actually connect with them, finding new ways to reflect their aspirations in our plans and actions. And mainly, we weren't afraid to admit or face our shortcomings to both our staff, our clients and any of our stakeholders. Indeed, we embrace these as opportunities to improve, aiming not just to be better, but to be our best. So we know we're not there yet. I'm enormously proud of the achievements under such adversity, but we know we've got a long way to go. We continue our relentless program of change. We're moving to a co-design process of service improvement, and we're in the process of developing a mechanism for our clients with intellectual disability who don't have conventional ways of communicating or expressing their decisions to have a say at every level of the organisation, including having a voice to our board. We continue to build the skills, knowledge and practice of our staff so that they can provide the best services possible, whilst reaching into the community more broadly to promote social inclusion via our new Achieve Foundation. By changing lives one at a time, we aim to change the world, and that's no small ambition. Thanks for listening to me today. I'm really keen to hear your questions, yeah, that's our story. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Joanne, for that very interesting presentation. We've had a couple of questions come through that are quite interesting. The first one comes through from Gabby, and she says, "Thanks so much, Joanne. You seem to have found the right balance between leveraging internal resources and using external expertise to achieve results. What advice do you have on how to leverage external consultants and resources?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting point, because I think, we had to really pare down, and before I got here, the organisation was running on the smell of an oily rag, because, we'd been through this existential financial crisis, and so the head office was pared back. We had people doing, several jobs at a time. We'd stopped using consultants. And so the risk really was that we, would fall down in all of our systems and processes and our support of our staff to do their frontline work. So we really had to start by building the capacity of our organisation to do the essential things that we required to actually get back on track. In doing that, we actually started from a really good organisational design perspective. So really looked at what the organisation needed, what jobs people had, what their roles were, how they interconnected, and then what the gaps were. And so leveraging external resources, we looked at what expertise can come from outside that we can't buy in, that we can't actually deliver internally. What do we need in the here and now that's actually going to build the expertise of our staff, and be really discerning, I suppose, about how we use that. And we worked with some amazing external people to help us across the line. But really, I think starting from that great organisational design basis and making sure that you really have roles that are fit for purpose, clearly identified roles in your organisation, and then you can really see where those short-term or capacity building gaps come that you can use external resources for.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, the next question comes through anonymously, but the NFP sector, or not-for-profit sector, has traditionally not been recognised as a sector who embrace risk and innovation. How have you countered this to drive innovation and implement your strategy?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, and I think the NFP sector might beg to differ. It's a really broad sector, and there are many NFPs, and many of us pride ourselves on innovation because we've had to actually. And I'm not here trying to apologise, trying to refute that argument, but we've had to actually respond to changes in social policy, and in fact have driven changes in social policy because of the needs of our clients. But innovating in terms of actually responding to community need, to changing client expectation is tricky, because the NFP sector relies upon a very thin financial margin, and so doing new things, taking risks is tricky. But I guess that where we come from is really trying to continue to respond to both the here and now needs of our clients, but look to the future about how we want the future to be better, and support new services that build the resilience of our clients and build their place in the community. I don't know whether I answered that question actually, but I hope so. I lost my train of thought.
That's totally fine. All right, the next question says, Joanne, you and your executive leadership team have faced substantial challenges in your 18-month tenure. The progress that you have made are substantial gains for an institution that had a workforce that had perhaps suffered from change fatigue or doubt in previous leadership and did not have a clear direction. How were you able to get your leadership and frontline teams on board, gain their trust, and drive better collaboration and accountability to attain such a high level of success? Did you do all of this work internally, or did you seek support from a third party to help with this enterprise change piece? Well, that's a big question, so let's see how you go.
It is a very big question, and so I guess it was a mixture of both. As I described before, it was really a question of ensuring that we had the right organisational design and the right people in those critical roles. But certainly we sought support externally. So one of the great things that landed in our lap, really, we had been trying to source leadership programs to make sure that we were, all singing from the same song sheet, I suppose, with this very new team. And what landed in our laps was a course through the ACU that Gav, actually, that's how I met Gav Schneider, was teaching on, that was about leading through the change that came about at the beginning of the pandemic. So we signed our whole executive and senior leadership team up to do that course. So we did that together. And that led into a period of time working with Gav around building our decision-making tools and really coaching that leadership team throughout the rest of the year to build our resilience and our systems that helped us to work together. So, it was a mixture really of internal and external resources.
Excellent. So the next question actually comes from our own Dr. Gav. He just sent it through as a text message to me. He says, "Well done on your achievements at Achieve. It's very inspiring. What tips would you give to aspiring purpose-driven leaders?"
Yeah, look, I think hold that light on the hill and keep looking forward. It's really important that, of course, we don't just look forward and not know what's going on in our organisation, but I think giving people that sense of what's to come. As I said earlier, that being really honest about where we were and where we still are, and being acknowledging that change is hard, and that yesterday we had a senior leadership team and meeting, and people were sort of complaining that a piece of work hadn't come to fruition yet, and they were obviously feeling the strain of change fatigue. But I guess that that acknowledgement that things still aren't perfect, as a continued communication and a continued look at what have we achieved so far, celebrating those successes, but then looking forward to what comes next. How far off is that? And really keeping that light on the hill about how this is going to be different for everybody comes to this organisation and to most NFPs with a real sense of social justice and what that means for our clients. And I think that's what keeps people focused. If they can see every day what they do and what the organisation's doing is actually leading to better lives for their clients, then they'll keep going.
Absolutely. I love that analogy of the light on the hill. I think especially leading through troubled times or through difficult times, it's so important. And I thank you very much for sharing your message and sharing your experience, certainly leading a very important organisation. And we thank you for your time and presenting to all of our attendees as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, well, that concludes our keynotes for the event, but the show is not over yet. We still have a couple of pieces on the agenda. I would just like to invite Dr. Gav Schneider to join me as well.
Hi, Joe.
Gav, we mentioned briefly that this has all been made. It's all been made possible by volunteers. It's all been made possible through our executive team that are handling things at a regional level, as well as our state chairs. We had a chance to talk a little bit about our state chairs, but perhaps we could just bring up the image of our national leadership or our regional leadership and talk through a little bit about what each person does and just give a little bit of kudos where it's due, especially to those that haven't had their faces on screen for the last 3 days.
Yes, these sort of events and, in essence, launching an organization from what has really been a conceptual startup that was, inside David Rubin's mind and then became, something we wanted to get involved with based on the kind of innovative, fast-moving, strategic view that he held. It's humbling. Like, it was so awesome to listen to our various state chapter chairs who are all aligned in how do we collaborate, how do we improve what we do, and how do we drive performance. But most of you who've tuned in are now familiar with Joe and myself, so we probably don't need to introduce Joe and I again. But you had the pleasure of meeting Alicia, who's our Director of Events. Gary Sanderfield recently joined us as Director of Strategic Projects and Partnerships. And the lady behind the scenes, Janita, who all our speakers and guest presenters have got to know really well, is really responsible for the amazing production. And producing an online event, as we've all learned, is not without its hiccups. And there are many gaps in the way technology works and comes together. But I'm very proud of our team. And I would also like to thank my colleagues at Risk to Solution. We draw a lot of resources from R2S to make the ISRM happen. But we are firm believers that without the collaboration and partnership approach and education across the sector, where we are marrying up strategy, risk and management at a level that we need to thrive in the VUCA world, we won't achieve what we need to, which is, a strong, resilient, innovative Australia and New Zealand, which is the region we're looking at.
Absolutely. Now, folks, there are a lot of ways to stay connected with us, but I'd highly encourage you to check out the ISRM journal, which has just gone live. I believe there'll be a slide coming up any minute now with a bit of a preview of what that looks like. It is an incredible it's an incredible publication. When we first started talking about putting together a journal, like most of these things, it started off as a Word doc and then a collection of Word docs, and through Janita's magic, it has turned into an actual publication. I'd also like to encourage you to join in on the conversation on our LinkedIn group, which is if you just search on LinkedIn for ISRM ANZ chapter, the group will pop up. It's got a handful of members in there at the moment, but hopefully, if you've got some value out of this presentation or this event over the past 3 days, you can join in there, ask any questions you may have, and also to contribute the value that you can as a risk leader in your own right, or someone who's interested in the themes that we've talked about. Janita, can I just get that journal back up, because I really think we need to publicly thank Janita for this. Look at this amazing document. I said I would pay money for this if I went past it at a checkout, and it is yours free. You can scan the QR code on screen, or alternatively, you can it'll be emailed, or a link will be emailed to you as well. It's a tremendous amount of work from some great risk leaders throughout our region, many of whom are our state chapter chairs. So I do appreciate their input on this, and certainly anytime I get to see something in print with my face on it, I'm happy. So,
Joe, and just I guess a big thank you there. Ron Amram, our WA state chapter chair, put up his hand to be the editor, and editors are the unsung heroes. He worked with every one of us who submitted an article to try and get it consistent and thematic and structured in a very professional manner. So Ron, thank you. Janita, thank you. For those listening in, our intent is to do 2 journals a year. One journal like the one that's just come out now, which will be short industry relevant articles. The other will be a full academic peer review journal. And we are busy putting together the peer review committee at the moment, which at this point has five doctorate PhD reviewers. And, we have no doubt that will stand up as a very robust academic peer review journal for those of you who want to publish in that manner. So please take advantage of that via submitting articles, letting us know, or if you do have a doctorate level qualification and would like to join our peer review committee, please reach out and let us know.
Absolutely. The ISRM goes from strength to strength. The caliber of people we already have involved is incredible. The caliber of people I've seen just in the attendee list is incredible. And we all grow through that shared involvement. So I do echo that. If you have something to contribute, if you'd like to write, if you'd like to peer review, and you're appropriately qualified to do so, then please get in touch with us. Gav, we have about 15 minutes left, and we could banter back and forth, but I want to give you a platform to share your thoughts as a wrap up and as a call to action of next steps if you want to get involved in the ISRM Australia and New Zealand.
Thanks, Joe. And maybe just for the first part, we can go back and forward with some highlights of the last 3 days, and then we can talk about engagement and involvement. So I'll probably start with day one. It's always a wonderful sign when you're kind of going, man, what is the one takeaway? Because there were so many great ones. But for me, one of the things that's really resonated, and I'll start with General Stanley McChrystal, was his strong linkage of the way the human immune system tackles risks and linking that back to, the larger community, societal challenges that we face. And it echoes so well with the challenges we've got, which is trying to build at an individual, team or organizational level and hopefully get a societal benefit. And the game has changed a lot since conventional risk management was set out with an industrial age mindset in place. We've moved quite far past that. It's awesome. Shane Fitzsimmons, so good in terms of actual real life experience. And I have to say, I think anybody who holds a political or controversial office always has the challenge of speaking from the heart. But when Shane was answering the questions, he really came alive from my perspective and provided real open, honest feedback. And I think the thing that stood out for me with Shane was just that authenticness. Authenticity, I think is the correct term. You really felt he was genuine, and the leadership role that he performs now in Resilience New South Wales as the next step in his career, seemed to be based on the fact that he knows how to get people aligned and drive towards common purpose, and seems to be such a fundamental believer in risk and resilience. And then we did have some technical difficulties with Dr. David Rubens, but if you've never heard David talk, the way David looks at strategic risk and what is happening on a global level is fascinating. And one of the strengths David always brings to the table is his knowledge of crisis and disruption. And I think probably my big takeaway from that was David's point of, and it's a bad news point, but it's probably the truth, that COVID is not the big one, and we have to be ready for what's next. So it's a significant challenge for us to accept realities like that, because we're so keen to drive back to a new normal. But that new normal, by definition, needs to be one where vigilance and preparation, and to a degree what we discussed around resilience, that idea of prevention, preparation, and bounce back better, is embodied. And I thought that was a really good trend through the first day. But I'll pause there and see if you've got any other thoughts on day one before we climb into day two.
Yeah, look, I echo your thoughts on day one. I mean, it's a little bit mean to our other speakers to start off with someone like General Stanley McChrystal as Act 1, and then say you've got to follow that for the next 3 days. That's an incredibly tough task, but everyone was up to it. As you said, the risk immune system is something that I'm sure I'm going to appropriate and include in a lot of presentations and speeches moving forward, because I just love that analogy. But it does connect in with what Shane was talking about and what Dr. David Rubens was talking about as well. And it is interesting to apply that immune system model to what we're seeing with COVID response, where we've got some people that are very risk adverse to anything to do with COVID, and it's almost like what General McChrystal said about if you have HIV, then obviously, I mean, your immune system is so compromised you can't take any risk. And then if you're a bit healthier, then you can take more risk. And if you've got fantastic health, you can take a lot of risk. But the consequences of making those decisions wrong are the same for everybody. You die. So it's interesting to think about that in the context of our current situation, whether, and I don't have any answers to this, but I think the value of this is not in the answers, it's in the questions. Are we tackling this the right way? Is this an existential threat, or are we setting ourselves up for either success or failure for whatever the next thing is, whether the next thing is a singular event or whether it's a combined event with two major issues happening at the same time? There's a lot of questions that can be asked based upon those the stories, not only from General McChrystal and Dr. David Rubens, but also what Shane Fitzsimmons was talking about in terms of community involvement, community readiness, resilience within our community, not just within our leadership.
Thanks, Joe. And bearing in mind we still are on the clock, so let's have a look quickly at some of the highlights from day two. For me, I have to say, when we were putting that panel together around where risk is going and what works and what doesn't, and so you think you know risk, four different experts with different perspectives, some well-known speakers who love to share their thoughts and knowledge around that. I kind of felt, and I had a different perspective being on the panel, that, wow, we've just started the conversation. We've actually just begun to actually unpack where risk is going, how we manage risk, how leadership and risk intersect, the different thought processes we have, the limitations of, let's say, compliance-based risk management approaches, and acknowledged that they absolutely have their place in stable, non-complex environments. But if, as we keep saying through the event of VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous is the new normal, we have to start tackling the new normal in a different way. And that doesn't mean that we throw out the old. It's about taking the best of the old and the new. I thought, my key feeling was that just really created and stimulated the thought leadership pieces for where we need to go next. And I'd be urging our attendees to let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, what the topics that came up and what you'd like to know more about, because we've only started to scratch the surface on these things. Listening to John Blaxland, Professor John Blaxland, no doubt one of the region's experts when it comes to looking at threat, risk, and what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. always humbling the level of robust research and insight that John brings to the table. And it's, again, one of those poignant reminders that while we're fixated with COVID now, there are lots of other moving things happening around us in our region that may significantly have impact on us as individuals, our organizations, and our businesses before we even know that they're upon us. So staying vigilant, staying mindful, looking at what's happening around us, really important. That kind of leads me to Rich Cooper. What a big topic to talk about: technology enablement, business continuity, risk resilience, and presilience, and how that all comes together. But I think the key piece there, and I'm always humbled when tech experts like Rich are able to articulate these complex things in a simple way. But the technology is there. It can help us understand live time what's happening and create situational awareness. It can help us understand, analyze data in a way that's more meaningful. But as per Rich's key point, that doesn't really work well unless the human in the system is enabled and buys into that. So I think so much on day 2, even as I'm running through my summary, we haven't even begun to explore those ideas that each of those key presenters touched on. But those were my big takeaways. What about you, Joe?
Look, I can only say ditto, and I can also say that when I saw that we had the four we're going to come up with a boy band name for you guys. I think the philosophers of risk has been thrown out there. We have someone like a Dr. Gav Schneider, a Jason Brown, Dr. Carl Gibson, Pete Gervasoni. When I saw that there was 4 of you on a panel and there was only an hour, I was a little bit nervous about hosting it, to be honest, because if you've ever heard Gav or especially Jason and Carl and Peter to probably a lesser extent speak, to try and ask them deep questions and limit them to 5 minutes is almost unfair, because they're all so knowledgeable on the topic, and the fact that they managed to keep it within the confines of an hour is impressive and a testament to their professionalism. I won't add any additional thoughts to what you said on day 2, because I do want to get into day 3. What were your thoughts on day 3?
To be direct, I was kind of humbled. When you see all the state chairs and the executive team we've put together, and everyone is a volunteer, nobody's getting paid in the ISRM, who really buy into this idea of how do we do this stuff better? How do we collaborate with other organizations, other parts of government, other associations? How do we get the best of what people can offer to solve the problems that not only are happening today, but the problems we haven't even thought of, which is where the strategic risk comes into play. It was really humbling. And each one of those state chapter chairs is an expert in their own right. They are high achievers in their own careers, and they've built a robust base of knowledge and experience, and they are passionate enough to donate their time to network, drive knowledge and education, and do their part to try and help us make Australia and New Zealand, as we say, more risk ready, more resilient, and ideally presilient. And to drive this networking approach, it's awesome. As Joanne mentioned, I was together with Gary Sanderfield. We were involved in consulting as external consultants for Joanne, but it's what she achieved at Achieve is humbling, and it's a great testimony to the old saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And when you get an empowered leader like Joanne that is both humble and highly competent at the same time, great things can happen. And there are so many amazing leaders out there that once they embrace risk and really go, we can own it. And to quote one of the people I know, you've spent some time talking to Jocko Wilnick around extreme ownership. That's what we need from our leaders. We need our leaders to be doing what Joanne did, to be owning the fact that they can steer change and drive their people, their behavior, their organization to achieve great things. But to do that, they need to be an enabler. And the Achieve journey is a great case study that explains that. So, again, today, while it was a slightly different day, I think our state chapter chairs, did an amazing job in showing the passion that they bring to the table and the why, the purpose in their engagement. And I would like to reiterate the key message there that David Rubin started this thing with, which is we want to be a good neighbor. This is not about joining one association over another. It's not about priority of this one or that one. As mentioned, I did my risk management consultant of the year for RMIA tour last week. I'm speaking on a panel for the Governance Institute. Our aim is to play as effectively as we can with others to improve the outcomes for everybody. And my true hope is that we don't let ego, hubris, and misguided hierarchies get in the way of achieving really good things for the risk sector, the leadership sector, and in essence for all Australians and New Zealanders. And the last point before I hand back to you on that, Joe, is your point, okay, that you made around a global network. We are a global world in terms of the way we trade, the way we derive information, the way we share information. If we don't leverage that connectivity, we will always be reactive. So if we want to create a true mindset of resilience, we have to be thinking global, and the ISRM creates that opportunity. So those were my takeaways. I could keep going.
Yeah, no doubt. It's almost unfair to try to summarize 3 days like we've had in 20 minutes. But for me, echoing what you said about the incredible network of chapter chairs or state chairs and obviously the country chair in New Zealand with Gavin Pearce, it is humbling to think those people are donating their time, which we know is scarce, to be able to assist with the mission. And that's what it is. It's a mission. It's a mission and a vision of the ISRM which attracts these people. It's not any kudos or benefit or another post nominal. These people already have all these things. It's about the vision and being able to actually make some substantial change. My final takeaway for day 3 before I let you close is I really love Joanne's presentation because it brings home what's so central to me, which is the human elements of leadership and risk. And she had an organization with tired people that had change fatigue, who had this pandemic thrust upon them, which impacted them not only for their staff and their leadership, but also their clients as well. And then the different human factors of dealing with persons with disabilities and communication barriers and so on. She really had to step back and go, this isn't going to be solved with policy. This has to be fixed at a people level. This has to be addressed at people level. And it was incredibly insightful for me and validating for me because I'm all about human-based risk, that she was just so inspiring in what she was able to achieve there. That's it for me for the day 3 takeaways. Gav, I'll throw to you for you to be able to make the final call to action and any other talking points you may have.
Well, Joe, thank you for a wonderful job as MC. And it's not an easy job when you have so many different experts who want to continuously share. So thank you for an amazing job. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. And we hope you got some insights and we stimulated a bit of thought. Please don't let this be your last engagement with us. Tell us what you need. We will design events. We will set up education. We will create networking opportunities that enable us to achieve a more resilient, pre-resilient, risk-empowered and strategy-aligned culture in our organization and our society so that we can indeed thrive in the challenges that we have to face moving forward. So please do download the journal, stay engaged, and let us know when you'd like us to put on another one of these events, whether it's face-to-face or virtual, and keep your eye open for our state chapter chairs who will be running networking events and education events on a local level so that we can get as much knowledge sharing, collaboration and networking as possible. So until we all meet again, please take care, stay safe, and let's be risk intelligent in the way we tackle all the challenges that are presented to us in this new normal. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for your leadership, Gav, and thank you everybody for your participation and your attendance. As Gav said, please stay connected. LinkedIn is the place to find all your ISRM updates, but please reach out to your state chapter chairs. I know they'd love to have your participation. Thank you for your attendance over the past 3 days. It's been amazing. It's been an honor to MC the event, and I look forward to talking to you next time.